Welcome, everyone. This is our Friday Grad Clinic. This is your opportunity to get your questions answered, immediate help, immediate support on whatever it is you're struggling with at the moment. Some of you have gotten in touch and sent your PhD research proposal. Others of you got in touch throughout the week asking what topic you should focus on and if you're on the right path. Others of you just got in touch and said, hey, how can I better network and connect with mentors, troubleshoot some problems with our supervisors? And really, that's what this group and this community is for. This is designed to be an open access, living, breathing community of support for grad students across the world. So many students I find really have a bumpy road, struggle along the way, aren't getting the right support and mentorship they need. And, I had that experience myself. I came from a small school in Texas. I didn't have a lot of connections. I was a first generation graduate student. And it was only through getting the right support that I was really able to accelerate and break through some of my own personal barriers that were holding me back, some of my own mindsets and beliefs that were limiting me. And that fast forward, got on the proverbial fast track, got into a graduate program at Yale, onto a PhD at Cambridge, tenure track at Harvard, and now I'm very happily settled as a full professor in Bocconi, Milan. And this group is really my way of giving back. One of my early supervisors said, "Look, it's going to be your turn one day to provide support to others in the way that I've provided it to you." And that was a charge I really took seriously. There is that old cliche: if I've seen far, because I've stood on the shoulders of giants, and that's what I'm doing here. I want to really provide that support that was provided to me through to the whole world. So what we've got today are some very good questions. I picked a handful that I want to cover and go a little more in depth on. And I think you're going to find these are relevant to you. So we have some questions from Jessica that came through about how to handle when some of your ideas evolve, when you discover things in the course of your research that maybe you weren't aware of at the beginning. And then you find yourself halfway through a project thinking, wow, if I could do this all over again, I might change things. So that's a really common thing. And I think a lot of you can relate to that. So I want to take her question on in more detail. Then I had a series of questions coming in LinkedIn on getting serious about networking. I know this is on some of your minds as some of you are applying to postdocs and PhDs this time of year, being aware that you already need to plan ahead, have a clear roadmap for what you're going to be doing next fall, next autumn, or for this in the Southern Hemisphere, next spring. So I want to talk a little bit more about getting serious about networking and the kinds of things you can do there. Then, time permitting, I actually want to go through some of the PhD proposals, statements of purpose that have come through to me, because I know that that's going to be of relevance and of interest to quite a few of you. So again, if you do have questions, pop those into the chat, and I'm going to actually pop in a welcome myself here just momentarily. Make sure everybody is on board. And just a quick welcome, and an especially big welcome to our new members who may not know exactly what all support is available to them. Again, everything you see in this group, you're going to find what you need in the guide section. You're going to find over 30 hours of master classes on some of the topics we're going to cover today. And don't hesitate ever to get in touch with me so I can connect you to the right resources that you're going to personally find helpful to break through your own barriers, just like I did long ago. Okay, with that, I want to read out what came from Jessica, because that is something I do believe that many of you are going to be able to relate to. And so Jessica wrote to me, just paraphrasing here. I've realized I could have benefited. So hang on, let me come. Here we go. So I've come to the end of my PhD where I've analyzed my data, and I'm currently finishing up writing my conclusions findings. I've realized that I could have benefited from asking the participants maybe other certain questions or framing some questions differently. Since collecting my data, of course, I learned more stuff regarding my topic of research. And so she continues, my specific question is, should I acknowledge this in my study limitations section, or should I include it in the future research options section? Jessica, this is a really fantastic question. I'm really glad that you brought this up, because it's very common. A good research trajectory and a good research agenda will actually be opening up more questions often than it closes. And that's very healthy because you can imagine if you have a research agenda that just kind of closes down the space and scope of inquiry, that research agenda is going to die. That it won't be bearing any fruit. You want a research agenda, a good research agenda that's growing will be generating new facts, figures, data, information. I don't want to get in an underlying philosophy of science discussion, but for example, Karl Popper is a big advocate of falsification. And falsification is very important in science, that we need to have a way to prove things are false in order to not have a lot of dead ends in our research. And there are some branches of physics, for example, string theory, that currently can't be tested with our current state of technology. And some people liken them to a religion because we don't have the tools to falsify them, just like we can't falsify religion. And that's something that makes it different from science. However, falsification is not enough. Just by falsifying ideas and hypotheses, you'd be closing down research space. So, Jessica, I would first say what you're seeing in terms of opening research space is what another professor, Lakatos, a sociologist of science, argues is exactly what you need to be growing a healthy research branch. So, if you guys are on the right track, this is something that is very common. A positive sign. So, first of all, well done, Jessica. That's really nice. The second thing that you need to know about this opening up more questions and wanting to have reframed it. Some people think, shoot, well, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I need to go back and change things or do them over. And you can run yourself in endless circles. And this is exactly why, commonly in research process, what we want to do is exactly avoid this. Because what people too commonly do is they go get their data, they figure out they could have done it better, they fiddle around with the data, and then they package it up again as though that was their original idea all along. And this is a recipe for producing a lot of false positive findings that cannot replicate. And that's basically like dumping a bunch of pollution into the pure field of scientific knowledge. And I want you guys to open up healthy research agendas and not have rot in your studies. So definitely, Jessica, what you're doing is not what so many researchers do, which is time inefficient and not good for the field, is go and kind of fiddle around with the data or rework it or kind of squeeze it in a different way to make things look even better. 100%, what you need to do here is acknowledge it and study limitations. That these were perhaps things that extend your hypotheses or refine them, and point them as less a limitation as much, but more as a direction for future research. That in the course of it, this really goes in your conclusion section, that you say, when this literature stops short of asking these questions, future research is needed now to X, Y, and Z. And so what's really nice, your research agenda is growing. You're kind of rolling out the red carpet for what needs to be done next in your field. So I really like that. It's intellectually honest and it avoids false positives, because it could be that sample of people you found could make sense with answering those questions in that way. But if you went out and did the research from scratch, that might not come out. So that's why you really don't want to fiddle around with what we call sample specific variation, to try to make a story out of those patterns. You want to try as best you can to stick to your original ideas, however imperfect you realize they are midstream. Finish those, package those up, restart the process. I hope that makes sense. And for the purposes of what you're doing for your PhD, that's more than good enough now, and it's already publishable. So definitely make sure you get those key points in there, in both the study limitations and the future research section. And I hope that can also help you in applying for funding and cashing in on those publications, building and breathing life and oxygen into your research agenda. So guys, if you have any questions or you can relate to what Jessica's experienced with your ideas evolving midstream in your research, do pop that in the chat. Let me know how you've handled it and what you've done. And I hope you haven't fiddled around with sample specific variation. That happens more. Jessica's doing qualitative research. That happens more and more insidiously in quantitative research, where with just a few clicks of a button, people could change the way they test their research hypothesis. With qualitative work, it's a little bit harder to go back and have conversations with people, so it happens less. Okay. I want to keep going. And guys, if I know a lot of you will end up watching on the replay, So if you are watching on Team Replay, I love to know that. Just mention that replay in the comments. If you pop your questions there, myself and some of our other coaches in the group, Courtney, will be sure to answer that for you. And again, get you that support that you need to really thrive. Okay, I'm gonna press through on because now there's this other topic here on on mentorship and networking that I really want to cover because it's really incredibly important. And guys, this is something you really all need to be doing before you apply to your PhD. I work with so many PhD students who have a bad fit with their supervisors, and they may need to change, and then they kind of get tarred with the stain of being a difficult student, and then nobody wants to work with them. And the sad reality is that many of these students have the ability, they have the natural talent. It's just kind of like, think about, you could be born with a gift for tennis, but if you never got the right support and mentorship, you will never develop into an all-star tennis player, no matter how naturally gifted you are. And this is what I see with so many students. It's just they haven't been able to connect their natural gifts and abilities to the right support to where they can really thrive. And that's where the magic happens. So you need to do everything you can to stack the die in your favor. And if you're not getting that support and mentorship that you need, one way you can try to do that is by, just today I was strategizing with another student working in a lab out of Australia, of how you can diversify your bases of support and find co-supervisors to bring in on your project. But what this all boils down to, though, is starting to build your network and being serious about your network. I think often in grad school we have a temptation to really focus on intellectual capital, and we sometimes forget that the social capital side is every bit as important an investment. I mean, the investment in your intellectual capital will last you a lifetime, of course, and you don't want to short shrift that. You do want to make it a priority, but your investment in your social capital is almost at a similar footing. To put an extreme example, I had some contemporaries in my cohort of PhD students in Cambridge who were not as technically gifted, definitely not the brightest. But I mean, in a sea of bright people at Cambridge, of course. But I think they also realized that, and they took an approach that, okay, I want to have my own research institute one day. I really want to thrive, and they aggressively invested in networking. And to my surprise, many of those who, if you just would have put who has the intellectual gifts, they got further ahead. They were ones who were better able to land compelling postdocs, great research positions, because they were able to connect into winning labs. They were able to connect into winning teams, winning resources, get co-authorships on papers, manage to be in the right research planning networks. And getting yourself in those right research planning networks is incredibly important. It's one of the reasons why there is this Matthew effect in science, where the rich get richer and the rest lag behind. If you're not in a winning lab that has a track record of producing Nature and Science publications, you're fighting an uphill battle against those who are in those labs, who have a steady track record of churning out those high impact publications. So you want to get yourself in a research network. And the way you're going to do that is by beginning to get serious about crafting an approach to building your network. So how can you go about crafting that approach? Well, there's really, this is a bit of kind of online networking in marketing in a way. The digital age has made things possible that were not possible before. So you really can divide your strategy into two prongs. One is internal to your university, where you already kind of have a basis and a precedent for starting a conversation and building your network there. And the other is wider. And for many of you are looking outside your university to build support. But I just briefly want to cover the first one. So the first one, the initial starting point is with faculty members in your class who already have a connection. If you stand out in your class, it's a great way to get attention of a faculty member. Those faculty members can open up doors for you. I remember being at Yale University. I was looking for an internship. I didn't know what to do. And I remember vividly a faculty member picking up the phone, calling Congress. She knew several staff members there. And just like that, she was able to get me an internship with the senator I wanted to do an internship with. It really is that powerful. connect with faculty members. They can they can open doors, and if you make a good connection with them, using some of the strategies, the vesting interest strategies that we use with our students, you can really have life-changing experiences as a result. So definitely make the most of the time with your professors. I talk to so many students and I say, well, did you use the professor's office hours? And they have scheduled blocks of time to give you support and mentorship. And that doesn't just have to be if you feel confused about what's in the class. Use that time to get to know more about their research, get to know directions they're going. If you really enjoy that class, that is your opportunity to help get a strong recommendation letter and to build your network. And it's kind of ready made on a platter for you. So that's there. The second is to really attend talks that you find interesting and engage. Many universities are bringing in external speakers or at least organizing Zoom events with them. And that's another area where you have the opportunity to shine. Do your homework, come prepared, ask a question. It just creates a natural basis to follow up, that you have a reason to follow up with that faculty member. And I remember going to attending events in grad school, and I actually went. I was doing stuff in public health, but I was interested in some governance and dealing with corruption at the time. And I went over and attended talks in law school, and that helped me too. It opened up other internships, research connections that eventually led to a partnership and some research proposals that we did jointly with Transparency International. And it really helped me engage at the time with some different NGOs and some other people to amplify the impact of my work. And the reason I did that is because I could tap into the network that my university already had and plug into that. It got me a seat at the table where if I would have gone and maybe knocked at my level as a grad student, knocked on the door of Transparency International, they might have been, who are you? And so that really take advantage of your already existing networks that you may not have tapped, but still have some great potential to help you. Okay. Now, if you start thinking about going abroad to people outside your university, the approach I'm using with a lot of students, I'm going to pull on Aditya here in a second. And Aditya, I see you here in the studio. I'm just going to bring you on, so stay tuned, Aditya. And Aditya is going to talk about some of the strategies because we've actually been doing this together, and he's had some great success. And one of the things that I want to point out is that here, when they're outside your university, you can still use some of the same strategies, attend talks and participate, but it can be a little bit harder to break through. The other thing that you probably want to try, and I encourage you to do always when you're trying to get in those research planning networks, is try to contact faculty. Now, when you contact them, you want to make it about them and not just about you. And this is one of the common mistakes I see over and over with so many students, where I get emails saying, oh, I'm thinking about doing this project, maybe on this topic. Will you supervise it? And I'm left thinking, well, I don't know who you are. You don't sound very organized. Why are you coming to me? It doesn't quite work. And Aditya, hey, I just see you in the studio. Aditya, I'm bringing you on just here now. Hey, Aditya, how are things going? I think this is a really nice time. I just wanted to say, you've been actually going through this approach of cold contacting professors in different universities, trying to build those networks. Tell us a little bit about how that's going and some of the approaches you've been using.
Right. Thank you for having me on, first off. In part, it depends on the country and the sort of structure that they follow on, um, because the UK invites students to contact professors and perhaps reach out to them with a proposal and so on. In the US, it works a little bit differently because not all universities have that. Some universities have a more centralized approach where faculty don't really have as much bearing on the outcome of an application. So that's what I learned in some of my recent interactions with professors. But as you said, some of the main important facets of establishing communication are that you have to make it about them. While you do explain what your interests are, it's more the purpose of that communication is ensuring that you know why you want to work with a particular professor and what it is about that particular professor that that interests you. And so far, I think that's worked for me. And I've had conversations with professors in US universities, which I have to say I've never had that before, with respect to PhD applications. So it definitely works.
Nice, Aditya. Yeah, and again, you guys have nothing to lose by reaching out and trying to get all of these professors. I mean, don't get all spammy and spend hundreds of messages, and if they don't reply, get aggressive. I mean, that's not going to work. It just comes off a little bit creepy. I mean, almost in a way, think about it like dating in a way. You're trying to build rapport and a relationship and court somebody's interest and attention, and you're not going to do that by kind of like banging on the door and, hey, pay attention to me, hey, pay attention to me, I'm so great. And so what one student wrote to me is figuring out how to network can be difficult, especially when you're trying to find points of commonality to talk about. Well, with these professors, I mean, like Aditi said, you want to do your homework first and know what those points of commonality are. So read some of the research papers. Get to know, what lights their eyes up, what kind of lights their fire, and gets them going so that they're excited. And so often that excitement and enthusiasm they have for their research will spill over and be attached to you, and will make for a really pleasant, meaningful interaction. So especially if you can set up a call or can set up a meeting, try to let them do the bulk of the talking whenever possible. Just basic tips. So that external strategy is harder than the internal strategy of your university because there's already a pretext. There's already an expectation that you might get in touch. But even externally, as Aditya points out, those of you looking for a PhDs or postdoc in the UK, where there's a much closer, tighter one-to-one relationship than with a broader committee, those professors are actually expecting you to get in touch in advance. So if you haven't done that, you are putting yourself at a disadvantage when it comes to applying and getting your foot in the door. One thing I do want to say about the network is not just professors, but also other students. And I think one thing that's really happened at the time of COVID is a lot of students have been feeling isolated and not really benefiting from a network of other students that can keep you motivated, keep you engaged, feed you with other research ideas, and help you find winning topics. Maybe bring your attention to aspects that connect with your research that you never really thought of before. And that's one of the big values you actually get out of grad school is you connect into a winning research network. And many grad students, if they're in a successful program, go on to publish and build healthy research relationships with members of their cohort. Now, for a lot of you, that's broken down at a time of COVID, and many students are feeling isolated, and they're not really getting the full benefit of their investment in their graduate education. But definitely with other grad students, you want to do this. It's commonly said, there's a common cliche that the bulk of your success will come not from your first order, but your second order networks. And that really was an example of what I mentioned earlier with a professor who could pick up the call and create a connection for me. She was a first order network, and I was able to tap into second order contacts from her. So building a big network around you will open up and multiply your second order contacts that can potentially have a big payoff for you. And Aditya, yeah, I just wanted to actually, since I've got you on here, before we turn over to your proposal, maybe you could say something about how that aspect, how you've been able to tap that aspect of the research community. Yeah, you're able to say, because I know you've been collaborating, for example, with Rehab in the group on a systematic review. Care to share, because I think other students really want to try to achieve those benefits in grad school and on their journey for themselves. Can you say something about how you've approached that, not just outreach to professors, but other grad students?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's an integral part of your journey in becoming a better researcher, because I think that's the ultimate aim, right? You can only be a PhD student for as long, or a postdoc for as long, and I think a large part of what I want to do is develop skills. Be ahead of the game a little bit. So I think being part of Fast Track and working with Rehab, for example, on data extraction has really helped me. And despite having initial struggles with that process, I've soon discovered that things do start to get easier. You start to get better at it, and I think that's the key, right? Just ensuring that you stick on after that initial struggle, because things will get easier. You will learn new skills, and ultimately, I think the point of research is that in exploring different topics over a period of time, you learn new literature, you learn new skills, you interact with new people, and I think that's what you want from a career.
Yeah. No, Aditya, that's really helpful. I really like what you said there about, things will get hard, and and in some ways you've got to push yourself through it, and it's natural that it gets hard. You are stretching yourself to try to take on new skills that initially will be very challenging, but down the road, once you've done it a few times, will feel natural. You'll almost have the muscle memory to where you could do them without investing the time, energy, and frustration at the outset. And that's, again, we're having the right kind of support in place from your peers, from your professors, can make a world of difference. All right, with that, Aditya, I'm really glad you could jump on, because a lot of people have been asking about research proposals and statements of purpose. And so I want to share yours and just do a quick pass here live so others can kind of get a peek on the inside of how to approach this. Now, I know I've got to share my screen and bring this up. Now, I know you've already started to begin structure this in a very good way based on some of our initial conversations. So I'm just going to go kind of through that a little bit here. Let me make sure I can get the right screen up. I believe it is not this one. One second. Not this one. There we go. This one. Okay. Let me come here and go ahead and pull this Word document up for us to look at. And hang on a second. I'm just going to keep track of the studio here to make sure everybody can see. Okay. So I'm going to zoom this in and hopefully make it so everybody can see. One second. Let me see if I can make this a little bit bigger. There we go. Yeah, I still think I need to zoom it in. Aditya, can you still see that reasonably well?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Okay. So here you're applying to, it's actually not clear where you're applying from the outset. So I tend to treat, so this is different. So for PhD and beyond, I treat these applications in a way like a job application. Because that university is going to be looking for you to complete, but also to produce important research. And that's different from the master's, where in the master's, you're kind of absorbing information and just have to get good grades. That's really more, it tends to be more of a taught course. PhD is research oriented. And so those, at least where you're diving straight in, like in the UK, where you're diving straight into doing research, you really want to make sure you tick the boxes of that. You got the skills. You know what you're getting yourself into. You have background experience, and you know who you want to work with and why. So I like structuring this a little bit more. And then more advanced is to say you can wrap a narrative and a story around it in kind of an introduction and conclusion, but first get kind of the meat, the nuts and bolts right. And it's not strictly necessary to have that necessary here. That narrative and story get hung up on that. At least first get the meat of things down, simple and right. Okay, so the first is good. You want to introduce who you are, and I like to be clear. So again, in general, I like to use specific language, but I'm just going to go over and highlight a few things in a macro way and then come back and dig in some edits. So exploring the impact of global health diplomacy on conflict it sounds a little bit vague. I think we could do a little bit better, because we don't know what kinds of conflicts are these. Right? Are we talking about wars? Are we talking about ethnic divisions? What are we dealing with? Global health diplomacy is a buzzword, so if people know what that is, great. And then you're speaking directly to them. But a lot of them may even be allergic to that jargon and not like it. So a wider term might be governance. Potentially, but try to be more. It depends who you're speaking to. It's not clear who you're speaking to, so this is something I immediately flag. This is kind of an unpleasant sentence to read, just generally. And again, you want to show them that you have writing skills. There is a subtext here, and so this is kind of right. One thing that Richard Dawkins, who wrote books like The Selfish Gene, said he always did when he wrote is he would read aloud. And that was really a way for him to check if his writing was on par. And if you read this, Having studied sociology and religion as an undergraduate at Emory University and global health as a graduate student at Duke University, followed by professional research and implementation experience in Somaliland and India, this is the right time for me to elevate my skills in research and fill the gaps in scholarship in global health diplomacy and conflict. Okay, I gotta breathe. Yeah, that's a little hard to say. Yeah, I'm still hang on. Get some water. That's hard. We've got to. We're gonna break that up. But I like this. I still want to understand. You leave some things that are not fully connected on sociology and religion. So I'm hoping by priming how this connects, right? You've got this voyage to make of, well, you did sociology or religion. How did you get to global health diplomacy and conflict? So that's kind of what you're foreshadowing. Let's see if it actually comes out. So consilient research. I don't know what that is. If I don't know, they may not know. So we need to say that. Okay. So this is about what you did there. And then this is good. I like that you're saying you did some telephone interviews and surveys. So this is great. This is showing you've got experience and you've got data experience. So this is really nice. I like this. I want to see what the payoff was, what you produced, and how it had an impact. So I want that to be here. And this is nice. I want to hear, though, more, rather that there was a security challenge. I feel like this is, in a way, kind of brings to life your interest in conflict, that you've kind of lived these experiences, and this makes very real and concrete your interest. Like, you're not going to waffle and flip-flop around. Like, this is very real to you. So this is important, but I feel like it's just a bit tacked on, where here, after talking about all your research skills, I want to hear more about what the payoff was that shows, okay, I did the survey, I analyzed the data and stata, in what good came out of that. I just wanted to see, because that then shows you got the skills, you can finish projects and produce things with it. And hopefully you're going to have a rec letter from somebody here who's going to back that up. Okay, second. So I like this. I like that you're telling your narrative chronologically. You spent a year in India, training health workers. I want to know who this was in collaboration with, because I'm assuming you didn't just wander around training health workers in 18 villages by yourself as like a barefoot traveling social scientist. I mean, that would be pretty impressive. If so, say that. But I want to hear more about the partnerships here. Okay. So I do like how I do like this. So you're telling your narrative of how you form these skills. I didn't really see, again, you trained them. I mean, I would like to see something that came out of the program, or maybe you realize there was a gap, or you realize that through this program, you're saying here that you realize through this program, you want to make a real world policy impact, but I want to see a story of how that gets you to your big questions about global health governance or diplomacy and conflict. So again, there's still kind of a bit of the story that's not flowing. Where are you taking us through your experiences? In sometimes your life is not so neat and tidy, but unfortunately in these applications, we want to make it, even if a bit artificially, we want to make it a little more neat and tidy. So let me see. I'm going to keep going here to give people a chance to read it. Similar to the work I did in rural India, I conducted my master's thesis on the barriers to integration of uterine balloon tamponade. Okay, again, this might be technical, and a lot of people might not know it. A lot of people might accidentally think, since you've been talking about conflict and military stuff, that this is a military term. It's obviously not. But just to say, try here to right. I'm reminded of a quote by Da Vinci, like, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And I want us to aim for that here. I want to keep it simple, because when people don't understand something, they shut off, or they kind of push it. It's like foreign, it's too engaging, and they're just looking at this at a glance. So you want to make your writing, any writing, but especially here, because they're just glancing at, they're going to have a paper here, reference letters there. They're going to be glancing at it very briefly. So here you're saying here that you've equipped your topic sentence here. Guys, if you don't know about topic sentences, see the some of the writing training that I make available in the group. Doesn't really fit with what this paragraph is about. You're saying your skills have equipped. You have the skills to pursue a PhD. And then, so this is just not clear what you want to say in the sentence. I think you want to say how your work would really, you could contribute to you know, or maybe you've been in contact with these professors and you'd like to work in their teams. But yeah, this paragraph has again smushed a few things together we need to unpack. And here, I think this is background about you, and I feel like the narrative is getting a little bit lost because now you're saying you moved to do your undergrad studies and grad studies at Duke, but you kind of talked about your master's thesis, and we don't know where the master's thesis was. So a little bit of the chronology, I think you've been setting a chronological structure, which is good, but now we're jumping around in the timeline, which makes it confusing to follow. So overall, it's a perfect fit. They might think this is actually too much. They might think this is a little too strong. So you do want to try to hint that you could, you know, your data skills can contribute. You can analyze research in large data sets and would love to contribute to their projects. But they might think this is a little presumptuous. You're coming to us for training, and now you're saying you can help the researchers in the community. We just want to be more specific about what that contribution is, and not to attenuate it, but just to kind of calibrate it so that it just comes across a little bit more convincing. Okay, so those are kind of my macro big thoughts. Kind of if I were going to annotate this with comment boxes that I put through. Let me see if I'm going to do some radical surgery very quickly. So don't worry about this. So this is saying you're familiar with, you know what you're getting yourself into at Emory. And I think one of your highlights, I want to get your highlights up front, that you have experience working in Africa and India. You know, and that's very important in global health. So I'm just gonna put here some placeholder notes. Let me do all markup so people can see. So I want to have up here something about your experience working in Africa and India, and that you kind of want to go to the next level with a PhD to empower you to make a bigger difference in deprived communities, which suffer from you know, conflict and structural violence. Maybe something like that. Maybe something along those lines. I still don't see where sociology and religion fits in, which is okay. You can quickly breeze past that. I wanted to know a little bit more of the story here. Where in your timeline was this? Where does this kind of fit in? Were you, Aditya, where were you in kind of, were you an undergrad? Were you master's thesis? How did this fit in?
This was my most recent job, actually.
Okay.
So this was around 2019 up until COVID lockdowns.
Okay. So, okay, this is great. So I'm just going to put 2019. So I was wrong. This is not chronological order. So let's make this a little more chronological. I think chronological works well here. And so maybe we can talk about India is like, I'm, you know, my passion for helping others or something, my passion for using research to make a difference traces to, you know, a year working in one of something like this. And I think I want to move this earlier. So what timeline was this?
So that was right before my Somalia job.
It was before the Somalia job,
Yes,
so you had finished your master's.
Most recent first, and then so on.
Yeah, it just feels weird because you're kind of building up to where you want to go next, and so it kind of that's like almost like an inverted pyramid kind of structure, reverse chronological. But I don't think it works as well here. I actually think it's nice to come what you've been doing recently, and the next step. So I think this here. When did you do your master's thesis?
That was around 2016. I graduated in 2016.
Okay, so I did my master at Emory University. Well, no, yeah, at Duke, right?
Yeah.
At Duke. So I'm just getting the timeline right. Did my master's thesis on this, and so I think you can. So this is out of order again. So maybe you did your thesis on this, and then you took it to the real world. So it sounds like you did your thesis, and then you took it to the real world here. You realized some things about right that these health technologies good, but there were some bigger challenges to the communities, and that's why you wanted to work on this this conflict side. It's not clear what you worked on here, and now you want to go back to the university to go to the next level. I think that kind of becomes the narrative that's carrying through. We just got to kind of realign that, and we're going to take another 5-10 minutes to get that right, guys. If you have any questions about this process, and how you could apply this to your own, let us know. Drop those in the comments. If anything we're doing in the editing doesn't make sense or is unclear, yeah, please do drop that in the comments, because that's not going to be clear to somebody else as well. Okay, so let's see. So tell me about this. So working for Consilient Research, that's the name of the company. What is this? Is this a consulting firm?
Yes, it's research consulting firm. Yeah.
Okay, research consulting in Somaliland. I think can you be more precise about the location, because you'd have to forgive some people for not knowing where that is. So yeah, tell them, like, assume they don't even know where China is on a map.
Okay, so it's complicated because technically, so Somaliland is a breakaway republic from Somalia. So if you look at the map of Somalia internationally, Somaliland still comes under Somalia, but its governance is entirely separate.
Well,
And it's
okay,
not a
well, so, okay, well, good. So, I mean, Aditya, even exactly, somebody saying here, yeah, I did not know. I didn't know either. So, yeah. So, but I think this is an important element of your story,
fair
because
enough.
working in this place, you could potentially see, well, look, great, we can put in these uterine device, these where is it, uterine balloon tapenades, but okay, if people are too scared to go to the doctor's office because of the violence, that's not going to make a difference. And so I think you can make this argument about, you really saw kind of the root social and political causes of things that the health system couldn't deal with, and that's why you want to go to pursue a PhD in global health and development. I think that's kind of your flow here is, witnessed how, failing to deal with underlying, social and governance challenges would lead to avoidable suffering, which the health system could not combat or something. So that kind of I think that's kind of, I'm just trying to align get the narrative to be linear and have a flow, and then we can change it. So um, you know so I want transitions. So one of the things I think saying is that the transitions were kind of missing, and that was breaking up the flow. And transitions come from kind of the end of the paragraph, you're repeating or linking sentence, and then the topic sentence of your next. We need that to create flow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I just want to explain really quickly why I said Somaliland instead of Somalia, and
Mm,
that comes from my time in Somaliland actually. So being a breakaway republic from Somalia, it's considered to be a little bit safer than South Central Somalia. Where there's a lot of terrorism and
mm,
piracy and so on. And when Somaliland refers to itself as Somalia, it's considered to be politically incorrect, and secondly, a lot of people feel like you're exaggerating the degree of danger that you're facing in Somaliland. So it became like a catch-22, at least in the job environment.
okay. Okay. Don't worry. That's a level of detail that's helpful, Aditya. But for what you need here is they just need to locate kind of where in the world you were and what that really means for your story, that you're working in kind of a breakaway republic, maybe considered a fragile state or a weak state, that's politically not stable or not fully internationally recognized, and I think that's fair enough. And it's not really clear what you were doing, because you say it kind of takes a few sentences to get in, that you had this opportunity to study these things, and we finally get into it here. So I would kind of mix this in again. I like to show, not tell. So one quantitative project, I collected, collected, or I performed telephone surveys using this tool. We don't need, I don't think we need to mention the tool over and over again, but and what was the survey about?
A bunch of things. I really have to rack my head. I think it was about the training that they had received in solar energy, electrical engineering, and chemical engineering.
Okay.
Through a particular intervention.
Okay.
And
Performance
whether
zones
that helped.
about residents, residents, or who exactly?
Respondents in the sample, I guess.
Okay, respondents. Let's say technological know-how, technological capacities.
Yeah.
Just trying to broaden this out. Um, uh, uh, and managed compiling these data into a database on ONA. Will everybody know what ONA is? I don't know what that is.
Okay. Yeah. So generally, when we're doing surveys and like mobile-based surveys, we upload it to a platform called ONA and sort of download it on that, because our researchers would carry cell phones with them and
Okay.
record it on cell phones.
Okay. I think I don't think necessarily that's an important. All right. You only want the details that are really necessary to make your story bloom. Otherwise, you're pointing all these details that kind of take away from your good stuff.
Okay.
So okay, given the volunteer situation, yeah. So you kind of already said a lot of this stuff, and to like you can monitor an online real time database platform. Okay. Uh, you use data and create data visualizations. Um, in so doing, I also developed proficiency using Stata to create rapid reports, synthesizing complex geocoded information to answer real world client questions. But yeah, that's a really nice, I think, here, this comment that just came through. Plotting all life events by year in Excel is helpful to get the chronology right. I do find it is quite one of the easiest ways to do this is kind of go step by step, because that's what people are going to look on your CV, and help show kind of how your life fits together and the transitions that you made, why you made them, and why not. In some cases, that might not. That there might be some things that are a bit disjointed. You don't necessarily have to include everything that you did. You just want to have kind of the top 2 or 3 highlights, which you've done here, which I really like, that we've got 3 meaty, you've got kind of your intro here. We got our 3 meaty paragraphs. You're going to talk about the fit for Emory, and this stuff I think is all kind of background. This is fit with Emory again. So I'm changing this again. Fit with Emory and maybe mutual benefits here. And I think this part here, we want to talk about your experience here. Background, I like this. Born and raised in Mumbai, India. I moved to the US to complete my undergraduate my undergraduate studies in sociology and religion. And as you can see, there's some redundancy in my graduate studies in what were the graduate studies in global health at Duke University. So this kind of says the same thing as this. We'll keep this. After working on the ground in so to improve maternal health and collect and bolster surveillance. This is we need your transition why you want a PhD. I realized something. So this is where you kind of need to make this transition. This sentence doesn't say a whole lot. So we're kind of getting a little bit closer here. So again, we're kind of circling and making multiple passes to refine, tighten up the argument. We'd have to spend a few more minutes polishing this. But I think this we've got a nicer structure intact that's linear now. So we just need to really, Aditya, to take this to the next level and really get this tight. We need to get the transition. So we need this transition on kind of why you transition to this after Emory. And sometimes that transition, sometimes you're transitioning, well, I just needed a job that paid well. Okay, fair enough. That's not what you want to say. Maybe you want to say, I wanted to get some experience working, and maybe you wanted to work some in Africa. You wanted to. You got to think of how you get this transition from working in India's district here to going here.
I wanted to work in a conflict or post-conflict environment.
Perfect. But why?
Because my underlying academic interests are in conflict and global health, and I wanted to understand.
So that's okay. That's fine. But then we need to conclude here and say that somehow this led you to become passionate about health in conflict zones. Was there some conflict here, or somehow if you get that, then it's going to totally make sense that you went to go work in a post-conflict environment?
A little bit. I mean, if I'm speaking the truth, I think I wanted the Somalia job all along. I just got it 3 years too late for various reasons. So what happened in India was, it was a good position and I really liked it. But I think my real passion was what I did in Somalia.
What was in Somalia? Okay. Yeah, I want to get to, we need somehow to get this interest, where this interest in conflict came about. Like with somehow how you're marrying up love. And I think the simplest way that story come together is by you were doing stuff in health and you realized you needed to go deeper. And if you didn't deal with conflict, you couldn't, there are these big governance, diplomacy or conflict challenges or however you can frame it. And those just need to come through, Aditya. So have a think here about where that could come in. Because I think that's going to be really important for telling the story. And I also want to get kind of the dates here to just kind of help them follow along where you're at. And then you're going to build up your story to this is transition into why you want a PhD. And now why Emory's the perfect fit, what you can potentially, how your ground experience. And I think that's something really valuable. Like you have these thick insights from the ground that you believe will help your research agenda. And that's going to be more convincing. I'm just going to put a comment here that make this case in the above paragraph. So I think this is a good stopping point. Aditya, thanks again for being willing to share this with the community. I hope some of you watching get some value out of this and see how you can begin to apply these approaches. I sometimes find when you're looking at your own paper, your own statement of purpose or proposal, you get very close to it. and it can kind of be hard to see objectively what's going on. But you can actually, maybe by looking at Aditya's here, see other elements, maybe your transitions, things that aren't flowing, parts of your narrative that might not be clear to others, that you can begin to incorporate into yours. So Aditya, I'm going to send this back to you, and I like to support rather than direct, as you know, that I won't ever do it for you. I will tweak it to, I hope, in a way that feels that's really you, but we're really just telling your story in a way that other people can really understand that the burning passion that you really have and is driving you to make this big investment in yourself and in your skills. So thanks. Aditya, any last questions, or do you feel good that you can take it from here?
Yes, definitely. And this is really helpful. I didn't
Cool.
have this direction back in the day. So yeah.
Excellent. So one last thing I'm going to put in here is you have a second. So I'm just going to highlight this in a second project. This second project is quite important, I think, because here you saw this violence, or you dealt with this violence firsthand, and somehow you need to now, okay, you got passionate about conflict zones, and then somehow you got to get from there to wanting to do the PhD. So it all nicely builds up. If you have any publications or any really good stuff, Aditya, or you've done conferences or presented it, don't forget to mention at each of these kind of the impact or result of what you did. With the principle, you want to show, not tell, because now we're showing you can do stata. We're showing that you can do qualitative analysis. We're showing that you've got the right background. That's going to mean with the right training from Emory, you'll really fly. Awesome. Okay. Aditya, great. I'm going to close this down and come back. Let's see. Stop sharing. And guys, any last questions before we jump off for today? Remember, this group is the opportunity for you guys to get immediate support. Every Friday, we have our clinics, and and I do this in the spirit of openness so that everybody can benefit. Too often, I think some of the support and mentorship is just passed down in the ivory tower, and many students are fortunate and they have that, but a lot don't. And so do take advantage of this opportunity. And Afrin, it's been great to have you join us today, and would love to see as well. Comment below how your proposal is shaping up. Those of you who are on team PhD and applying to the PhD, or on team postdoc applying to postdocs, or on team professor, comment that below and let me know, because we do have some dedicated training that you're going to find valuable just for you at that stage. There are a lot of similarities and overlaps. So whatever stage you're at, a lot of the principles here are the exact same principles when writing a cover letter to be an assistant professor or even beyond. But do get in touch. Let us know so we can connect you to the right resources, and something I make available for everybody in the group. If you'd like to chat so I can customize the support to you, get in touch and apply to book just a one-to-one quick drop-in session, 15 minutes, and we will definitely help connect you on the right path that's going to give you value and help you stop losing time and efficiency on your way. Aditya, thanks so much. We're going to jump over, and I'm going to email this to you immediately afterwards. And don't hesitate to reach out if I can provide some more support on this. But it's looking really good. You've got a compelling story, and I'm really pleased you're doing this not with your back against the wall, knowing that the deadlines are soon, but well in advance, which is really good. All right, guys, have a great weekend, everybody. Great session as ever, and I will look forward to seeing you next week, Friday, at our usual time, right here, Fast Track Grad on Facebook Live. Bye for now.